There once was a king who had everything. Gold. He had mountains of it. Land. His kingdom stretched farther than the eye could see. Power. People bowed the moment he walked past. He lived in a palace made of marble and silver. His throne was carved from the strongest tree in the land and covered in lion skins. Servants hurried to feed him, dress him, and praise him day and night. And yet, every morning, King Meadu would wake up, look at all he had, and frown. Because he wanted more. More gold. More land. More power. Even when his hands were full, his heart felt empty. He sent soldiers to dig up new mines. He raised taxes on farmers. He even built tall statues of himself in every town. Still, it wasn't enough. People admired him. Others feared him. But no one truly loved him. And deep inside he knew it. One cold evening, as the wind blew through the hills, an old traveler passed through the market square and whispered a riddle. What do you give the man who has everything? People paused. No one answered. Then the traveler smiled sadly and said, Nothing, or a lesson. And that is where our story begins, with a greedy king and the 3 wives who would change his life forever. Before he was a king, Meadu was just a young prince, full of dreams, full of hope, and not yet full of greed. One day, while walking with his guards through a quiet village, he met a young woman named Awili. She was not rich. She wore simple clothes and lived in a small clay house at the edge of the forest. But her heart was full of kindness, and her hands were skilled in healing. She made medicine from herbs, helped sick children, and spoke gently to old women who couldn't sleep at night. Her laughter felt like sunlight. Her eyes held peace. Prince Meadu was struck by her spirit. She did not bow to him. She didn't ask for gifts. She only smiled and said, Even kings get fevers, Your Highness. So drink this and rest. And so, he fell in love. They married under the tall Irako tree in the village palace, where village drums sang and people danced late into the night. Awili brought calm to the palace. She did not wear gold, but she made the rooms feel warmer. She did not care for riches, but she made the king feel richer in heart. For a while, Meadu was happy. He laughed more. He listened more. He even shared food with the poor. But as the years passed and he became king, something inside him began to change. He wanted more. More land, more soldiers, more gold. He started counting coins instead of blessings. He stopped visiting the village. He built high walls to keep people out, and treasures in. And Awili watched silently. She still loved him, but she could see the hunger in his eyes. Not hunger for food, but for power. The kind that never gets full. One night, as he sat polishing his rings, Awili quietly placed her hand on his. A full hand cannot gather, Meadu, she said gently. When you grip too tight, you lose what matters. He looked at her, but instead of hearing her warning, he saw only a woman with no jewels, no crown, and no riches. And from that day, he began to pull away. Awili stayed, hoping he would return to the man she once knew. But the gold was already too deep in his veins. Years passed. The crown on King Meadu's head grew heavier, not with duty, but with desire. The more he had, the more he wanted. And then, one day, a new woman arrived at the palace gates. Her name was Amara, and she came from a faraway kingdom with tall ships, silk dresses, and secrets in her eyes. She was beautiful, so beautiful that people stopped talking when she entered a room. Her voice was soft, but her words were sharp. Her smile could charm a crowd, and her silence could freeze a room. King Meadu was amazed. She made him feel powerful. She made him feel like a god. So he made her his second wife. But Amara was not like a wheelie. She didn't speak of kindness. She didn't care for healing. She wanted power, just like the king, and she knew how to feed his greed. "Why stop at this land?" she whispered one night. "You're a king. Take more. Make them fear you. Let them know your name from mountain to sea." And so Meadu listened. He sent soldiers to conquer nearby villages. He forced his people to pay higher taxes, even if their children were hungry. He ordered golden statues of himself to be built in every city, taller than trees. His face was on coins. His name was carved into stone. But in chasing glory, he forgot the people. He forgot Awili too. She watched from a corner of the palace, heart heavy. She no longer had a seat at the royal table. Amara called her the silent shadow, and one day she made the king banish her to a small house near the river. "Let her live with her herbs," Amara sneered. "The palace is for queens, not beggars." Meadu said nothing. He turned his face away as Awili packed her things, walking slowly down the palace steps. Her eyes filled not with anger, but sadness. Then the skies stopped raining. The crops dried. The rivers grew thin. The animals disappeared into the hills. A great famine began. People begged for food. Mothers cried in the streets. Children slept with empty stomachs. But in the palace, the music played louder. The tables overflowed with roasted meat, fine wine, and golden plates. Amara hosted grand feasts, wearing robes stitched with emeralds. She danced while the kingdom starved. And King Meadu, he laughed beside her, blind to the pain outside his walls. The kingdom had cracked, but the king only saw his reflection in gold. By now, King Meadu had nearly everything he wanted. His kingdom was large. His palace sparkled. His name was known across the lands. But still, it wasn't enough. One afternoon, a wealthy merchant arrived at the palace gates with 7 wagons full of treasure, chests of gold, bags of diamonds, and silk from the east. "My gift to the king," the merchant said, bowing low. "And also my daughter, Nena." Nena was not like a wheelie, who spoke with kindness. She was not like Amara, who craved power. Nena was something else. She was clever. She was quiet. And behind her sweet smile, she had gold in her eyes. She didn't love the king, not even a little. But she loved the palace, the fine clothes, the golden bath, the sparkling rings. She loved the life that came with wearing a crown. So she put on a show, gentle words, graceful walks, and sweet laughter. And the king, flattered and foolish, made her his 3rd wife. But once the crown touched her head, Nena began her real work. She whispered lies to ministers. She made one advisor hate another. She promised gifts to some and threats to others. Soon, court meetings were filled with shouting and fear. Even the other 2 queens, Amara and Awili, became targets. Nena smiled at them in the day, but sent spies at night. She placed strange powders in their rooms. She paid servants to stir trouble and spread rumors. The palace, once grand, became a place of shadows and secrets. Meals were tasted 3 times before anyone dared to eat. Guards watched one another, unsure who was loyal. The halls grew cold, even in summer. And King Meadu, he barely slept. He jumped at every sound. He trusted no one, not his guards, not his wives, not even his own shadow. He clutched his gold tightly, like a child holding a toy in the dark. He spent hours alone, counting coins, running his fingers through jewels, mumbling numbers under his breath. The more he tried to protect his riches, the more he lost control of everything else. The kingdom outside was falling apart. But inside the palace, the king sat alone, surrounded by gold and drowning in fear. One stormy evening, as thunder rolled across the hills, a strange traveler appeared at the palace gates. He was wrapped in a long brown cloak, soaked from the rain. His beard was silver, and his eyes were as deep as wells. "I bring a gift for the king," he said softly. "Not gold, not jewels, but truth." The guards, unsure what to do, let him in. The traveler walked through the grand hall without bowing, past the fountains and statues, until he stood before King Meadu. He opened a small wooden box. Inside was a glowing stone, soft blue, like moonlight. "Place this in a quiet room," the man said, "and build mirrors around it. What you see will be your kingdom, not as it is, but as it could be." Then, without another word, he turned and disappeared into the night. Curious and proud, King Meadu followed the man's instructions. Deep inside the palace, he chose an empty room. He ordered his best builders to hang 3 tall mirrors on the walls, facing the glowing stone. And when it was ready, he stepped inside. What he saw made him stop breathing. In the first mirror, he saw a wheelie beside him, older now, but still gentle. The land behind them was green and full of life. Children played in the fields. Villagers laughed. The palace gates were open. Peace had returned. In the second mirror, Amara sat alone on a throne made of bones. The sky was black. Fires burned in the villages. Soldiers marched over crying people. Her smile was cold. Her crown was cracked. In the third mirror, Nena danced in a room full of gold, laughing as flames climbed the palace walls. Smoke filled the air. Servants ran. And in the middle of it all, she counted coins while everything fell apart. King Meadu stumbled back. He told himself it was just a trick, a dream, a lie. He scoffed and said, "Mirrors show faces, not the future." But that night, when he tried to sleep, a voice echoed through the palace walls. Soft, but clear. "Choose your kingdom, your majesty. Choose your kingdom." Every night after that, the mirrors whispered. Sometimes they showed the same images. Sometimes they changed. But always, they waited for his choice. And King Meadu, he began to wonder if he had already chosen. The mirrors kept whispering. And outside the palace walls, the kingdom was changing. Whispers of hunger turned into shouts of anger. The people in the outer villages, tired, poor, and forgotten, rose up. A rebellion had begun. At first, King Meadu didn't believe it. "How dare they rise against me?" he shouted. "Send the army." But when his soldiers marched to the villages, something strange happened. They didn't fight. Many had already been bribed by Nena's allies, paid with gold taken from the very heart of the kingdom. Others simply refused to attack their own families. Some even joined the rebels. The king's control was slipping through his fingers like sand. Then came the betrayal. One quiet night, Amara gathered the royal guards and vanished. No goodbye, no loyalty. She took the fastest horses and escaped across the eastern hills. She had seen which way the wind was blowing, and ran. The next morning, the king rushed to the treasury. But it was empty. Nena was gone too. She had stolen the kingdom's gold, loaded it into carts, and slipped out through a secret tunnel. No one stopped her. No one dared. Now the palace was silent. No music. No feasts. No queens. Just a broken king in a lonely throne room. But as the sun began to rise, a quiet figure appeared at the palace gates. A wheelie. She wore a simple shawl. Her hands held herbs and bandages. Behind her walked villagers, some limping, some hurt, all needing help. She didn't come with swords. She didn't come for revenge. She came to heal. She walked past the gold statues, now cracked and crumbling, and entered the palace she once called home. The people cheered. They dropped to their knees. They cried and begged. "Awili, lead us. Be our queen." But she shook her head. "I did not come to rule," she said softly. "I came to remind you how to care." And so, while the throne stood empty, Awili worked in silence, cleaning wounds, feeding children, and teaching kindness again. The 3 thrones had fallen, but hope had quietly returned through the palace gates. The palace was quiet now. No laughter, no footsteps, no music. Just the sound of wind whistling through the broken windows and the creak of a lonely throne. King Meadu sat there, alone. The golden statues had cracked and fallen. The treasure rooms were empty. The queens, Amara and Nena, were long gone. Even the servants had stopped coming. And in the mirror room, the 3 reflections still waited. Awili with peace, Amara with power, Nena with fire. The king looked into the mirrors every day, hoping they would change. But they didn't. And slowly, he stopped going. He wandered the empty halls in silence, dressed in dusty robes. No crown, no guards, just an old man with tired eyes and too many memories. He thought of Awili, her soft voice, her warning. A full hand cannot gather. When you grip too tight, you lose what matters. He thought of the people, how they once cheered for him, then feared him, and finally forgot him. One afternoon, as he sat in the throne room staring at the floor, he heard a voice. Small, honest, pure. "Excuse me," it said. The king looked up. A little boy stood at the edge of the hall, holding a piece of bread. His clothes were torn, and his feet were bare. The guards were gone. The doors had been left open, and the child had simply walked in. "My mama says you used to be a good man," the boy said. "Is that true? What happened to you?" The question hit Meadu like a storm. He didn't know how to answer. His mouth opened, but no words came out. His lips trembled. His hands shook. And then, for the first time in many, many years, the king began to cry. Not because he had lost gold, not because he had no throne, but because he finally saw the truth. He had lost himself. Many years passed. The palace that once shimmered with gold now stood quieter, simpler. The kingdom had changed. The people had rebuilt, not with riches, but with kindness. One day, a group of travelers came through the town square. They expected to see a statue of the great King Meadu, carved in stone or shining in gold. But what they found was something very different. At the center of the square stood a statue made of clay and woven grass. Not polished, not grand, but full of meaning. It showed a man sitting on a broken throne, his shoulders low, his face calm. Behind him stood 3 women, one with a gentle smile and healing herbs in her hands. One tall and proud, her arms crossed. One with wide eyes, clutching coins. Below the statue was a small plaque, carved with simple words. Greed takes, love gives, and only one remains when the gold is gone. Children often gathered around it. Old men sat nearby and told the tale. And sometimes, when the wind was quiet, you could almost hear the whisper of a mirror. Choose your kingdom, your majesty. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.